Today on research writing, we are here to learn how to write your methodology chapter of your research report. Are you ready to learn? Good day. I am Dr. Usman Muhammad Bello. I'm here to make your research writing process easy and simpler. Methodology. This section is perhaps one of the most important aspects of your research. And this is where you are going to give the details of all the processes involved in conducting your research. You will have to spell out your design. You will have to spell out your process of collecting data. You'll have to mention the tools you use. You also let us know how you are going to analyze the data and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of issues that we are going to be addressing under this section. For a lot of departments, a lot of disciplines, this constitutes the chapter 3 of your research report. There are some disciplines who also try to make methodology to be an aspect of their chapter 1. Wherever you put your methodology, you are still going to address the same thing. And what is it? The processes involved in the conduct of your research. So we begin with the first important aspect of your methodology, which is research design. Research design. It is important you understand the design that you want to give your research before you begin. There are 2 or 3 basic types of design that we generally have for research reports. Either you have a qualitative design, or you have a quantitative design, or you try to have what you call a mixed methods design. For quantitative design, it means your research will involve in statistical analysis. And quantitative research design requires that you'll have to collect data for a large number of participants through the use of questionnaire. You will be conducting some survey. It is the survey that will be subjected to an analysis at the end of the day, because you want to analyze some kind of behavior or pattern, and so on and so forth. So that is for quantitative design. It is also possible to have a qualitative design. In this case, you are interested also in analyzing certain pattern of behavior, but in this case, you are not relying on a large number of people. You are only looking at a few number of participants, and you can collect your data via interviews. And sometimes, particularly for people who work in arts and humanities, you may have to also base your research on a text. If you are conducting a textual analysis, that will also come under a qualitative design, because such kind of research may not involve in statistical analysis. The third type is what we call a mixed methods, in which case you are combining both a qualitative design and a quantitative design. Both of them will be considered. That means you want to you collect data from a large number of people, and at the same time, you are still going to identify a few number of people from which you can also collect some data via interviews. Now, what you get from your quantitative analysis or quantitative design will now be complemented by what you also get from your qualitative design. And in this case, we say we are using a mixed methods research design. So it is important before you begin to decide what kind of design you want your research to be. And from our discussion so far, we have said that Every research will have to be based on a particular gap or an existing gap. If previous research on a similar topic has been of qualitative research design, you may now make your own to be quantitative, and you can now state that in your gap as by saying that existing research in this on this field, on this matter, has dwelt so much on a qualitative or quantitative design, but in your own research you now want to make it qualitative or quantitative. You may also identify as your gap that previous research has either been quantitative or qualitative, and that might have necessitated contradictions in their findings. But your own research will now be a mixed method research design, so that what you get from quantitative analysis will be complemented with what you get from qualitative analysis, so that you have a deeper finding, a deeper finding for the problem which you are investigating. So you have to decide this at the beginning. And you also need to note that if you are doing quantitative, for instance, the number of participants you are using is a factor. For instance, you cannot say you want to study the the consumer behavior of Nigerians during the subsidy removal regime, and then all the number of people you have all collected data from, if they are not more than 50 or 100, then people may say that, well, 50 to 100 may not be representative enough of what you want to say, except maybe somewhere in your research you are going to be limiting it to a scope. Maybe even though your topic is saying Nigeria, you may now say your scope will only be Abuja, or will only be Lagos. So if your topic demands that you are going to cover a large area, you also make sure that your participants also spreads across, and you have a large number of participants. So that is why at the end of the day, you'll be able to have valid findings of valid results, which will now help you to explain the behavior of consumer behavior of Nigerians after or during the subsidy removal regime. So this will help you to have a clear and valid analysis and findings. So you have to take note of that. If you're also doing a qualitative research, in which case it may be a focus group you are going to do, you select a number of people and then interview them. Now, so the people you are going to select in this situation will have to people who have things to do with the focus of your topic. Like in this case, you are talking about consumer behavior. We'll expect you to include producers, including consumers, because producers from their own end will be able to explain how people who patronize them behave, how much product do they buy, and why do they change the nature of their product. The factors normally responsible for some of those things might be supplied during that. Then you also make sure that you include real consumers as members of the group, so that they themselves will also be able to give you their own opinions about the factors that are responsible for the way they behave during the regime. Why have they reduced the quantity of certain products that they normally take? Or why have they changed their product from a particular type to a closed type, and so on and so forth. So you'll have to include a range number of people who have to do with that topic, and then so that they can now give you different perspectives during the interview. It is those perspectives that you are going to, harvest, harmonize, and then analyze. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to come up with valid findings about consumer behavior during that regime. So people who constitute the group should be people who are important, who are relevant to your project topic or research topic. Then if you're also working on a text base, now you also make sure that the text you are using directly relates with the topic. It should be a text that has the factors or the point that will help you to explain the topic appropriately. And that's why it is usually the data that should drive your research topic. In other words, it is also advisable that before you coin your research topic or topics, you also have some knowledge or understanding of your data. In fact, if possible, you already have the data in hand, is available, and you have peeped into the data. So it is what you have in the data that will, at the end of the day, drive the topic you are going to come up with. So you cannot come up with a topic and then you are now looking for a text that you are going to use for that topic, because at the end of the day, you may discover that you don't have factors or points that will be able to explain or address the research gap as well as the topic that you have. So all these things, they work together. So the first aspect of your methodology is that of design. So under the design, you will have to let us know what design are you choosing for your research per se. This has to first be explained. Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? And of course, people in social sciences, many of their research will dwell on quantitative, particularly also people in education. They will insist that you'll have to do a quantitative analysis. The same thing with social science. So in summary, don't delay the decision on your research design until you get to chapter 3. It is part of what you will need to decide at the beginning of your research, because it will also drive how you are going to also write and construct your chapter 1. When you now get to chapter 3, just like I said earlier, all you are writing under methodology is simply explain how you go about the research. In fact, we normally tell people that your main research begins from that chapter 3 till the end. Chapters 1 and 2 are like a background. Are only preparing a background for your main research. But from the chapter 3, you explain the tools, you explain the process, and then chapter 4, 5, you now begin to do the analysis, the main analysis, your own research, and then you have your conclusion. So if you find this video educative and useful, I implore you to please like, share, and comment.